welcome to this week's video. Now, coming up in this week's video, I attempt to play Stevie Ray Vaughan on a Gretsch. Some harmony singing with my daughter. And I attempt to play my Gretsch on a kind of pop funk gig. So the first thing I wanted to talk about this week in this week's gig diary is about the physical toll that playing guitar seems to have on me. This only really becomes noticeable after I've had a bit of a break from it, and I was on holiday for 2 weeks. I then did a gig when I came back, then I had another week off, and then I did 4 gigs on the weekend just gone, so I hadn't really got back into condition from it. Now, I've still played a bit at home, but it's not the same as playing on gigs, I've discovered. Now, the first thing that happened, I did a gig on the Friday night, Saturday afternoon, Sunday afternoon and Sunday evening. First thing that happened, on the Saturday morning, I was getting terrible pains on my little finger as the calluses kind of hardened back up again. These fingers weren't too bad, but particularly my little finger, it felt like someone was jabbing the pin in the end of it as the kind of callus hardened. It was a very peculiar sensation. Also, then Sunday morning, after doing 2 gigs, my hands, and I get this quite a lot, my hands, it almost feels like if you've got a rubber glove and you kind of blow it up and it's all fat, my fingers feel like sort of fat rubber gloves. They're sort of all stiff, and when I squeeze them together, it's almost like they're bigger than they are. It's a very peculiar sensation. I mean, they loosen up through the day. It doesn't affect my playing later on, but it definitely, when I wake up, it feels really uncomfortable and stiff, to the point where I fed the cat in the morning and I went to put his bowl down, and because I couldn't really grip properly, I managed to drop the bowl of food face down, dry food everywhere, a big plop of the wet food on the kitchen floor. Very annoying, so I had to clear it up. The other things that happen are, by the Sunday morning, my lower back from standing up and playing and holding the guitar was absolutely killing me. Now, these things, some of them, like the hands, I get that after every gig. Things like the back and stuff, I do get a little bit, but this was all much worse because I hadn't really played properly for about 3 or 4 weeks, or hadn't done any gigs. I felt a bit out of condition. The other thing is this shoulder, and I think it's probably from tension when I'm playing, even though it doesn't feel tense. This shoulder really aches to the point where if I wake up in the morning, if I go to reach out to grab my phone or something, I get this sort of pain in my shoulder. It's gone now, it's absolutely fine. As I say, as I go through the day, these things ease, no problem. The other thing, of course, if you've done lots of singing, your voice can feel very tired. Now, I didn't do a lot of singing, so I didn't have that this weekend, but that can happen. What's strange about this, people often say, it's because you're getting older. Well, I don't think it is. I think I used to get this in my 20s, but I didn't realise it was because of gigging. I remember some mornings I couldn't get the top off the toothpaste tubes, my hands hurt so much. I used to put it down to drinking, because I used to rather like drinking a lot, and I don't drink anymore, but this carried on. So at which point I thought, it can't be the drinking then. So I actually went to the doctors to try and find out what was going on, because I was getting really quite worried about it, whether it was some kind of arthritis or something like that. So I went along to our marvellous health system, the NHS. I went to my doctor and he referred me to a rheumatologist. I had blood tests first, and they did all these they checked for all these inflammatory markers to see if there's any problems. I also had an ultra scan on my hands. Actually, the guy did say, he looked at my hands, he did say you can see the very start of arthritis happening in my joints. He said, but no worse than it should be of anyone in my age who's played guitar for so long. But it wasn't that kind of pain. He said everyone has that. Basically, everybody's body is designed to stop working after about 40, as that was our life expectancy many, many years ago. So lots of things like our tendons become less elastic and our joints start to get a bit arthritic. But it wasn't that. And I went to a rheumatologist who, again, looked at my hands and ordered even more specific blood tests, and they found absolutely nothing wrong with me. And then, by some miracle, when I found out there was nothing serious wrong with me, on a morning after gigging, or, well, I'll come to this, 2 mornings after gigging, I would ache, but because I wasn't spending the whole day worrying about the fact that my hands were going arthritic, all of a sudden I'd kind of relaxed because I wasn't worried about it being anything serious, and the tension that I didn't have in my hands made the pains go away much sooner, so it would only last till mid-morning, whereas in the past it would last 3 days because I was like, what's happening with my hands? And I know this sounds really stupid that it took me about 20 years to realise that it was the gigging that was causing this, and the main reason why I didn't ever put 2 and 2 together is, well, there's several reasons. Firstly, it doesn't feel physical when I'm playing. I don't suffer any discomfort when I'm playing at all. You know, I'm holding the guitar, I can be doing it for hours, I don't get tired from doing it, so I didn't ever put those 2 things together. Secondly, Secondly, it never happens the morning after the gig. It's always 2 or 3 mornings after it. Generally, it would be, if I'd done a hard gig on a Saturday night, it would be either Monday or Tuesday morning I'd be really suffering, not the Sunday morning, so I didn't ever put the two things together. And even after having all of these tests, the only real reason I realised is I had one January where I was very quiet. I didn't really have a gig for about 3 or 4 weeks, and I didn't kind of notice that I hadn't got any problems with my hands. And then I did 2 or 3 gigs over a weekend, and on the Tuesday, lo and behold, all my hands were aching and my legs were aching, my back was aching. But I hadn't realised. It took me 20 years to suss this one out. So anyway, I don't worry about it anymore, but I guess it's like doing any physical activity. If you go running, maybe the next day, maybe 2 days later, your legs ache. So it's just the same thing. It's physical exertion. But fortunately, it doesn't seem to be getting any worse. In fact, as I say, it gets better now because I know it's nothing serious, so I'm not worrying about it. Right, on to the gigs. As I say, I did 4 gigs. Now, the first one, just a solo acoustic gig. I won't share any of that because I've shown loads of that in the past, but I will show something I've also shown loads in the past, but it's because it's my daughter singing. I'm very proud of her. And we actually sang in harmony for the first time this time properly when we managed to record it. So she got up and she sang a couple of songs, then she did some backing vocals with me singing. So we did Higher and Higher. And she was singing the backing vocal bit in the chorus, and then we did a breakdown bit where we both sung together, and I sang in harmony with her, and she stayed on her line that she was doing instead of swapping to the one that I was doing, which is quite often what people do if they're not used to singing in harmony. And I thought it sounded really good. Part of me had a slight lyrical discrepancy in the second line, which we'll have to sort out for next time, but anyway, I thought I'd just play this because I'm very pleased with the way she's progressing. The next gig was the next afternoon. It was with a band called the Vincents. I've shown myself playing with them before on my channel, and I was standing in for Trevor, who I know watches this channel, so hello Trevor. I stood in with this band for Trevor quite a lot a few months ago. Trevor wasn't feeling well and had a bit of time off gigging, but fortunately he's back gigging again. I'm very pleased he's feeling well again, but he was off doing something else this weekend, so I stood in for a couple of gigs again this weekend. I very much enjoyed playing with this band. It's Kev on double bass and vocals and Ivan on drums. I first met Ivan I think about 30 odd years ago in a function band, but it's very different from lots of my other gigs, and I get to play my Gretsch, which I was very pleased about. So this was a Saturday afternoon. The clip I'm going to show you was the first tune we did. It was Under the Boardwalk, and I did a couple of solos which I thought came out quite well, playing the Gretsch, which I haven't played, I don't think since the last time I played with the band, which was several months ago, so sort of feeling my way in, which made me play less notes, and I think the solo was quite nice because I wasn't able to play very fast, so a lesson there I think. So anyway, here's a couple of solos from Under the Boardwalk. The next gig, it was with the Vincents again, the following afternoon. It was a Saturday afternoon, that gig, and I didn't have a gig on the Saturday night, which is unusual, but it was nice to get home early. And then Sunday afternoon, had another gig. So turned up, and this was I think it's about the 4th or 5th time I've played with the band at this pub. It's in Littlehampton, which was the town where I grew up and went to school. We did a good fun set here. I ended up singing some songs towards the end, including this one. Someone walked past and said, Pride and Joy by Stevie Ray Vaughan, and I was thinking, Pride and Joy by Stevie Ray Vaughan on the Gretsch? What the heck, let's do it. So I did it. It's a slightly different take on it for lots of different reasons. You can't really play in the same way on a Gretsch that you can on a Strat. It responds completely differently. You can't get up the dusty end very well. But anyway, we did it anyway, and it came out quite well. Gave it a slight rock and roll edge. So see what you think of this. Then the last gig of the weekend, I went straight from the last gig I showed you to the next one without going home. So the guitars I had with me, I normally use my 335 on this gig. It's one of my regular gigs. It's at the Black Lion in Brighton. I've shown myself playing this one lots of times, but I normally take my 335 or my Strat. But on this occasion, I had my Gretsch and my Telecaster in the car. I'd used the Telecaster on the Saturday afternoon gig a little bit, but I actually on the Sunday afternoon I played the Gretsch all the way through. But so I turned up and I thought, you know what, I'm going to try playing the Gretsch on this gig. Now the gig is more of a kind of pop funk soul-y gig, and it's much louder than the other gigs, and the Gretsch can be a little bit uncontrollable, but I'm not used to it. Anyway, I thought I'll use the Gretsch on the first song at least, see how we get on, and we always start with Valerie. So I ended up doing a solo, and it's on the Gretsch. Have a listen. Again, I'm kind of restricted to what I can play because of the guitar, but I quite enjoy getting the feedback and stuff. But anyway, well, see what you think. Check this out. This is a regular gig, but I'd missed the whole month's worth of gigs because I was on holiday, and probably if we'd been in the middle of a string of them, I probably would have been quite happy to persevere with the Gretsch, but I was so pleased to be back playing with the band again. I wanted to be playing a guitar that I didn't feel inhibited or constricted on, so I got the Telecaster out. I hadn't even let the first song finish, so here we are. Here's me changing my guitar before the song's even finished, over to the Telecaster. Right, so now I'm on the Telecaster. Now we do that song No Diggity, I think it's called. Josh, the singer, does a very good version of this, and it's a good groove. But anyway, I got thrown the solo on this one. It's normally Johnny on keyboards does the solo on this, but we did the songs in a different order this time, very controversial, and I ended up with the solo on this one. So here we go, so you can hear how different the Telecaster sounds. Bear in mind this is plugged in through exactly the same pedals and exactly the same amp as the Gretsch, so you can hear how different it sounds by virtue of it just being a different guitar. And I'm probably, you know, putting a bit more gain on it and stuff, but check this out. Well, I hope you've enjoyed this Geek Diary. Please hit like if you have. Hit subscribe if you haven't already. Hit the bell and you know when I'm bringing out a new video. I bring out new videos at 7 PM every Friday UK time. I'm going to leave you with this solo. This was another solo from the same geek on the Telecaster, and this was Dreams by Fleetwood Mac. I put on my chorusy sound off my Eventide H9 to give it that kind of slightly different sound, a bit of delay just to mix things up. So hope you enjoy this solo, and I hope to see you next week.